Hi, Ava.
Hey, Maya.
I don't feel like going home.
I don't feel like going home either.
What are we gonna do?
Let's just chill here.
Are we allowed to?
It's public property, isn't it?
Guess what Megan wore to school today?
OMG. There's Sergeant B safe.
Let's get it on, baby. Cause I'm ready to start. Take the locks off the cage, cause I'm ready to bop.
It's late. What are you girls doing here?
Are we in trouble?
Trespassing, loitering and prowling, along with curfew violations, are a big deal.
Thank you, but I'll take it from here, Captain Chaos. Rules are made for a reason. A lot of bad things can go on after curfew. We're gonna have to call your parents.
You girls must have snuck out, which is not good.
Ladies, thank you for showing up in a timely manner. Just want to let you know, this will be a warning for them. They can't be out past curfew, especially on private property. Not only that, but they're also loitering and prowling. You two are able to take your daughters home. I know they'll get straightened out.
You and Captain Chaos keep up the great work.
Thank you, Sergeant. Be safe. We will straighten them out.
Well, I'm glad we got that situated.
Absolutely. Seemed like a mistake that was innocent enough. I'm glad we got the opportunity to educate the kids and make their parents aware. The work of a public servant is never over. One job down and many more to go. And that's your tip of the day. Get you on your way. Let's go start the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of Black and Blue. I am your host, Coach Clee. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. And I have an exciting and educational show lined up for you today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button on your way in. And if you don't like it, make sure you hit the like button on your way out. All right, we are streaming on 5 different platforms right now. We are on 2 platforms on Facebook, 2 more platforms on YouTube, and one platform on LinkedIn. And I apologize to those on LinkedIn who got the original link. We had to revamp the link. So hopefully you guys find the newer link and you guys come on here. So get your questions ready because this is an interactive live. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to talk about a lot. And if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments section. If you're looking for a shout out, I can't see who's on here unless you put your name and where you're from in the comment section, and we'll give you that shout out that you're looking for. All right. Like I said, this is Black and Blue. We go live weekly, once a week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we interview anyone who was a first responder or in law enforcement with their trainings, their experiences, or their publications. And we got a treat for you today. Some of you guys may know the guest, others of you may not, but we are going to go ahead and introduce him here momentarily. I see Shayla's on here. Yep. Thank you for tuning in. Good evening to you too. We're going to have a lot of fun here. This show is sponsored by One Way Publishing. One Way Publishing is their motto is, if you don't already know, they can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. There's a few books behind me that I wrote. There's a couple books that their clients have wrote as well and were published. So if you're looking to have a book published, make sure you check the website below, workwithclee.com, or let me see if I can get it up here right now. There we go. And the website scrolling below, make sure you check that out. Not right now, but after the live. If you're looking to be a voiceover for a certain Be Safe commercial cartoon, that's the place that you want to go. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, July's already booked up, but we can start for August. That's the place where you want to go. If you're looking to start your own book, One Way Publishing, that's where you want to go. And here's a commercial here, a quick one about One Way Publishing. Stay tuned because StreamYard is not letting me do it the old way, so I'm gonna have to pull it up through my files, and I don't know why they like being so difficult with me. Let me get this thing going on right here. Let's see. I think this one's it right here. Let's go. Publishing. Have you ever wanted to explain something, tell a story, or leave a piece of you behind? Have you ever wanted to write your own book, but not specifically know how to do it? Well, get ready. One Way Publishing's here. We can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. People need to learn from you. They need to hear that story. Kids need to read that book. Imagine if you wrote your own children's book and get to read it to your kids. Here at One Way Publishing, we can get your fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, instructional, what have you, done. All at a reasonable price and definitely a reasonable time frame. And if you don't believe me, ask Sergeant Be Safe. He's working on his right now. He's definitely writing the best chapter of his life. Make sure you check out his cartoon skits that air on the podcast Black and Blue.
As Sergeant Be Safe said, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And there we have it. So make sure you guys check that out. And also, so you're aware that we will be having commercial interludes with Sergeant Be Safe cartoons throughout this interview. But without further ado, I put this on the screen. I want to thank you for tuning in, Dr. Francine Bono Neri. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you guys tag, like, and share. I appreciate that. But we're going to get on. We're going to have what you guys are here for. We're here for a special show. We're here for another author. We're here for another retired sheriff from Arizona. This book right here, Cyber Creeps by Randall Snyder. This was an exciting read, believe it or not. It's a lot of good information, a lot of good stories, some tips, some information, things that we don't readily like to talk about is in this book. And I know it's weirdly to say, and I told him this backstage, it was actually a lot of fun to read because he brings a lot of humor in a lot of dark situations. And I'll let him explain that. I know that may sound a little gloomy right now, but it makes perfect sense. And he honors the profession. It's not a very fun profession to work. It's not something I would want to do, working in sex crimes, period, but with child sex crimes. And I consider him a hero in itself because, I mean, we got to protect our children. We got to protect the innocent. And that job is not something very easy to do. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring in Randy Snyder. He's a 23-year vet service with law enforcement. He worked for Pinal County Sheriff's Department. He's received awards the U.S. Attorney General Special Accommodation Medal of Distinction, the Pinal County Attorney Victims' Right Award. And let me go down this dissertation. And if I mess it up, I guarantee you he'll correct me. He's worked over 8,400 calls for service, 38 death investigations, probably more than that, 128 DUIs, 453 domestic violence cases, 874 violent crime cases, 266 sex crime cases, and has arrested over 120 child sex crime offenders. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without further ado, I'm going to bring him to the stage, Randy Snyder. Randy, are you here?
I am. Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely. Thank you for making yourself available and coming on to the show. I hope I covered everything correctly. And if not, I'm pretty sure you'll correct me. But can you tell me a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I was born in Colorado, then moved to Texas, grew up in San Antonio, and then came out to Arizona and fell in love, which not necessarily with the heat, but with my wife. And we just made our life here. I got on with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office back in 2000 and started out in patrol, did 5 years in patrol, decided to promote, went to corporal and promoted or worked the road for 5 years as a supervisor, and then decided that I wanted to get into investigations before I went any further, and really found my niche, I feel like, in persons crimes and in child crimes. I found that I was able to really take the experience that I had and apply it in ways that were being done to really benefit children all around the world. I started out doing some persons crimes, primarily child crimes, and then in 2014 had the opportunity to go to an FBI task force where I spent 2 years working internet crimes against children with the FBI. Came back to Pinal County and finished out the last of my 20 years with internet crimes against children from Pinal County, and was able to actually turn some of that around and start teaching at Arizona State University for 7 years, where I was able to take my sex crimes experiences and teach them to the next generation of investigators and law enforcement and even some researchers and things like that. And in 2021, I retired, decided that retirement didn't suit me as well as I thought. And so I came back to the sheriff's office last year doing background investigations and still trying to share some of my experience and passion for child crimes without actually having to continue viewing the images and doing the dirty stuff.
Right. Yeah. So that's a nice rundown on what you've done and what you're currently doing. Since 2021, you said you came back out of retirement to in your current role and position now.
Right. I came back last year as a background investigator. I've retained my reserve certification, so I'm still certified. I still get to go out and do all the fun stuff when I have the time and when I feel like it. But my primary role right now is doing background investigations, hiring the new guys, making sure that we get the best of the best come into Pinal County, so that we can keep doing the best we can for the citizens.
Right. Absolutely. So when did you actually answer the call or know that you got the bug that you wanted to be in law enforcement? When did that burning desire take a hold of you?
According to my folks, I was about 5 when my imaginary friend was the director of the CIA, and he would send me missions through my watch. I was way ahead of my time. I had the Apple Watch before Apple, and it was just one of those things that I always wanted to do. My dad was a deputy sheriff when I was born, and for a couple of years after I was very little, he ended up moving into private security. And I don't know if seeing him in uniforms kind of shaped any of that, but according to my parents, I wanted to be a cop all my life. And it's the only thing I ever remembered wanting to do. And it was absolutely a dream come true. And I still love it. My back and knees, not so much, but I still love it. The heart's still there.
Yeah, I understand. The body doesn't respond the way you want it to, but the mind still goes. The mind gets sharper the more you're in this field. I get it.
That it does.
Yep. So let me ask you this: throughout your career, were there any, or not even your career, before you even got into law enforcement, was there anyone who was an influence over you or was a mentor towards you to help you get to the position that you're at now?
My grandpa Clyde was probably one of the most influential people in my life, all throughout my life. He is just the one rock that was always there for me whenever I needed somebody, through the bad times, through the my parents' divorce and all of the different things. He was the one who was there, really showing me what it meant to be a good person, what it meant to be a good man, what it meant to be a good father and a good husband and a good, everything that you could want. He was the person that I could look to as an example. And so I was really blessed to have had him in my life for as long as I did. He was a sculptor, and he worked in the aerospace industry, doing the technical drawings for airplanes and missiles and things like that, and decided one day, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't my passion, and threw it away and started doing bronze work, and ended up doing bronze sculptures. There's 6 of them at the Colorado State Capitol. There's a couple of monuments in Colorado and Texas that he did. I've got about 15 of his pieces, and just his desire to follow his heart and follow his passion kind of helped me say, you know what, I want to be a cop. I'm not going to make any money at it. I'm not going to be very popular because of it, but that's what I want to do. And he encouraged me all the way.
Gotcha. Hey, well, shout out to him. And I'm glad that he encouraged you, especially since you had that burning desire since as far back as you can remember at the age of 5. I know you highlighted some family in your book as well. Is that the grandfather that you highlighted?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I talked about him. Unfortunately, when we lost him in 2017, it was really hard, just because he had been such a staple in my life for as long as he had. My family and I are very blessed that he decided to buy a plot of land in Colorado back in the 70s, and had it all the rest of his life. And all the best memories of my growing up were at his place. And nice. I still have that land. It was passed down to me. And so I can still make those memories for my kids out there. And my kids have some great memories. And we hope to keep being able to make those memories for my family and their families someday.
Nice. The gift that keeps on giving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when it's as hot in Arizona as it is. Go to Colorado and cool down a little bit. Slow down a little bit.
Yeah, we were just talking about that off camera, man. That Arizona heat that you were just talking about, man, it's probably 10 degrees cooler here in Pennsylvania than it is there.
Yeah, it's I think it's 111 today, 113, something like that.
20 degrees cooler.
It's not much cooler than you would use to, bake a cake or something. So
yeah, we're in the low 90s. I'm sorry, 20 degrees cooler. Yeah. But changing gears, like I said, I enjoyed reading your book. What made you decide to write this book right here, and how long did it take you to do it?
All through the time that I was working internet crimes, I had those weird cases, those notable cases, and people were like, man, when you retire, you're going to have to write your book someday. And I thought, no, that's not going to happen. And, not too long after I retired, I started kind of thinking about it. I'm like, that it might actually be good. It might be something that people would be interested in reading, and something that could educate parents, educate people on the dangers that are out there.
Right.
And so I sat down and started writing it. And sadly, once I sat down and started doing it, it just kind of all poured out. Yeah. I think I finished it in about 6 months, from start to ready to publish, just because it was so memorable to me, and it was so easy to recall a lot of the facts and things that it went through fast. The hardest part was getting people that wanted to read it to give me their editing advice and things like that. It's a tough topic. I get that it's one of those things that most people think is it's gross, it's icky, it's uncomfortable, it's not what we want to think about. But if parents aren't realizing that the number of predators online has increased over 700%, that they're doing a disservice to their kids, and they're putting their kids at risk. Your cartoon for this one was Ava and Maya out hanging out at the park, or hanging out at the grocery store after hours. What's scarier is the kids are hanging out on Snapchat after hours, or even during school hours. And these predators are finding them there, and they're able to exploit them. They're able to traffic them. They're able to extort them. They're able to do all of these things, and they're coming straight into people's houses, and people don't even realize it. When I started in internet crimes in 2014, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received about 4 million reports for the entire year of exploitation and abuse that was occurring on the internet, online, through social media and apps and things like that. Last year, in 2022, it was over 32 million.
Wow.
So and that's up from 16 million in 2020, when pre-COVID, when COVID started hitting and it really started booming. So we really have to think about the fact that so many kids are out there, and they're all on their phones, they're all online, they're all talking to people, through their apps and stuff like that. And they're out there at risk. Yeah.
It's amazing that number that shot up 7 or almost 8 times more than what it was in just a few years. And before we start diving into it, Dr. Francine said, yep, absolutely. Before we start diving into it, the book itself, how therapeutic was it for you to actually get out some of this information and actually get your thoughts onto paper to write this book?
It was amazing. And throughout the time that I was working internet crimes, just the dealing with it, at the same time that I'm going to work every day and I'm seeing hundreds of thousands of images of children being sexually abused, I was raising my 3 kids. I had my son in Scouts. I was his Scoutmaster. I had 2 daughters that were very young, and there was a lot of impact from that, from my work on my family and on my kids. And my therapist had always said, journal, just write it out, journal. I'm not a Dear Diary kind of guy. So part of, the idea of writing the book was to get it all out and to take care of myself mentally once I was out of having to deal with it all the time. And it was amazingly therapeutic. And just knowing that it's out there now to be able to help other people and to help the next generation be a little bit safer. So my Padawan isn't having to work as hard, although she is, that's the whole goal. Make it a little bit safer for everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to pause for the calls with the Sergeant Be Safe commercial, and we will be right back to dive some more into this book, Cyber Creeps. Stand by.
This is a good drink. I like this place.
I like it too. Mario, let me get another one.
Well, jeez Louise, you guys each had enough.
Hey guys, don't you guys look nice?
Now you fools want to show off.
She's talking to me.
No, dummy. She's talking to me.
You want to see me outside?
I see you now.
They're fighting over me.
Hey, you guys need to break it up. You're wrecking my place. Hey, Sergeant Better Safer, I need your head now.
Welp, I got a few pics of them. I'm out.
You foes knocked each other out. Megan, don't you live?
Like Popeye when it's time.
Looks like we're right on time again. I don't understand why you guys are fighting. I just saw Megan leaving. Was it for that?
It's because she liked my profile picture.
We're connected. Insta-talk.
Sounds like she played both of you. Isn't that right, Kraken?
Sergeant, to be safe. Captain Chaos, you guys saved the day again. You guys are the true heroes.
Thank you, Mario. We appreciate it. Once again, these two are going back to jail. Part of their punishment is they're going to have to pay for all of these damages. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we are back on camera here in the lab right now with Black and Blue. We got right here Randy Snyder and his book Cyber Creeps. And I see I got the website scrolling below. I also have it in the comments section. Other than Amazon, is there any other place or location that if anyone wants to get a copy of this book, they can get a copy?
They can actually order a copy directly through my website, and that's where, if you want an autograph, I'll be happy to sign it and send it out to you. So that way, if anybody wants to say that, you know, they got something special out of it, whatever. And then I've done a couple of signings recently, and I've got a few more events coming up that'll be listed either on my page or in my socials if anybody wants to actually come out and say hi.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, make sure you guys do that. I think it is a true treasure of a book to read, just to learn certain things. And I've been in law enforcement for 17 years now myself. Sex crimes is not my thing. And I learned a lot just from reading the experiences and the stories that are in this book. And I got kids myself, two kids, one's an adult, one's soon to be an adult. And just knowing the world, how it works in video games and apps and so many different things that are out there that our generation did not have to deal with while coming up, because we were pre-internet. So we got to play outside. We were used to being outside all day long. Kids today have so many things at their disposal. They can live a private life and not even know it, and have people coming at them. What are some red flags or things that you've seen that you can tip off to some of our parents that they may see that they can take action on before things go down the rabbit hole and become worse?
One of the biggest things is if they're talking about friends and they're mentioning friends that you don't know, that aren't somebody that you would recognize from their school. Most children would admit that about 50% of their connections on social media, they don't have any idea who that person is. And so not knowing who that person is behind the keyboard leads them to be in a pretty awkward position, and it causes them to end up in a very dangerous position. When I was working internet crimes, a lot of what I did was undercover work, and I would go online as a teenage kid, put myself out there so that the predators would want to come after me instead of an actual child. And it was no problem at all for me to go into a children's chat room, a chat room designed for 13 to 16-year-olds, and have 40-year-old guys hitting on me within 5 or 6 minutes. The average it takes for a predator online to solicit nudes from a child and to obtain nudes from a child is about 30 minutes. And so it really, unfortunately, is something that parents need to be aware of. First of all, the phone is not their phone. It's your phone. You just allow them to use it. And as long as you allow them to use it, you should have the right to go in at any time and view what they're viewing, see what they're doing, read through their messages. It's not an invasion of privacy. It's you doing your parental right to take care of them and to make sure that they're not being groomed. Right. Especially if you're allowing them into social media. 70% of social media or 70% of groomers who are online looking for kids are on social media. They're on Snapchat, they're on Instagram, they're on Discord, which is a big gaming platform. They're going into the games. If kids are on it, like Roblox, like Fortnite, like any of those, they're going to go on there and they're going to find the kids in those locations. And so parents need to make sure that they're watching what their kids are doing. If kids are starting to have items that, especially expensive items, that you didn't buy them, you need to question. That's a red flag. A lot of these groomers now are sending gift cards. They're sending money. They're providing physical objects as an encouragement to get that first couple of sexualized images that they can then use for extortion purposes later. When I was working undercover, I had a guy send me an iPhone 5 because my undercover persona, my phone was broken, so I couldn't send him any nudes. And so he mailed me an iPhone 5 so that I would be able to give him the gratification that he wanted. He didn't get it. He got handcuffs instead, but they're not above doing that. And so parents need to be aware of what kinds of things are your kids doing? What are they on? What are they looking at? And what can be done to try and prevent them from going into harmful spaces where the risk is really even greater.
Right. And Dr. Francine just made a comment here. Yep, 100%. It's not a matter of privacy. It's a matter of protection. Absolutely. And we want to protect all of our kids.
And Dr. Fran is an amazing advocate. She is the head of the Nurses United Against Human Trafficking. And so they provide training for medical personnel at hospitals, clinics, doctors' offices, stuff like that, on how to recognize human trafficking victims when they're coming in, because we know a lot of these victims that are being contacted online, they're being exploited online, they're being trafficked online. I think the last statistic I saw was something like a third or a quarter of all trafficking victims have never met their trafficker in person. It's all being done online. And so hospital staff needs to know when these victims are coming in, what to look for so that they can provide the right services. They can try and do what they need to help get them out of the life. And so Nurses United is putting on those trainings, and they're approved for continuing education credits for the trainings that they provide, both online and in person, to make sure that the people that are on the front lines of seeing this have the training to recognize it.
Nice. Absolutely. Keeping up the fight. Thank you very much. In your experience, have you seen more male victims or female victims, or is it pretty much straight down the middle?
Male victims have increased in the last few years because, let's just be honest, teenage boys are idiots. I was one. Ask my wife. I still am one. We're much more likely to buy into the fantasy of, some hot chick likes me. She wants to see my pictures. She wants to do X, Y, Z. And so we're idiots, and we'll send whatever we want to send. And then the consequences come back when it's sextortion or something. And we're seeing more and more cases of males being sextorted. Sadly, we're seeing more and more of them because the media is coming out about their suicides. They're being extorted. The consequence of their actions is more than they want to handle or can handle. And the suicide rate for teens and young adults because of sextortion has gone up, I want to say 70% just in the last, I think it was 2 years, if I'm remembering the study correctly. When I was in internet crimes, the majority of it was girls. The majority of it was young girls that were being sexually exploited, sexually abused. They were being contacted online. And those demographics have changed a little bit. They're still, the numbers are still, through the roof. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children sends out emails every week on how many cases they're receiving as the national clearinghouse for all online sexual exploitation. Last week, it was over 600,000 cases for a 7-day period.
Wow.
So what we're seeing is females are still getting extorted. They're still being exploited. Males have just kind of jumped up in the demographic in the last few years as the extorters have figured out the best way to go out and make their money, so to speak.
Man, those numbers are astronomical in just a few years. They were bad to start with, like you said, and now it seems like they're skyrocketing. Man.
Yeah. COVID really did a number on the exploitation stuff. You know, everybody was locked down for how long? They were sitting at home. They had nothing to do but go online. Then they were online for school. They were online for work. You can't have that much online activity and not have people abuse it and use it for the wrong reasons. And people haven't moved away from it since then.
Right. And so you said with this going on online and since with COVID, a lot of males are playing video games such as Fortnite and other games like that. Are there any other red flags that a parent can should know about? Like if the kid's playing and they're having certain conversations or they're acting strangely, is there anything that they will be aware of if they're not receiving any gifts per se or expensive monetary value items coming to the house?
There are some other red flags. There are some indicators, especially if they seem extremely nervous out in public, if they seem to be on their phone a lot and it's upsetting to them. I always recommend that don't have your kids charge their phones in their bedroom overnight. Have them charge it in your room. It does two things. When we were growing up, you had to deal with a bully. You left that bully at school when you went home. You didn't have to worry about it. With social media, the bullying goes on 24/7. They can get those instant messages all times of day and night. And by taking the phone away at night, it gives them that disconnect. It gives them that opportunity to not get those constant messages. And they can kind of decompress from that. In addition, it gives you the opportunity to look at those phones and see what are they texting? What apps are they on? Are they on certain apps that are more friendly, I guess is the word, more likely to have those predators on there? And that's not to say that any one app is horrible or worse. They're on all of them, but there are certain apps that there should be even higher red flags. You know, there are some apps that are out there specifically for hookups and for dating and stuff like that. And if your teen has those on their devices, that's a huge red flag. So you want to, check the apps and see what they're doing. And then if as you're reading through their text messages, you're seeing codes or you're seeing weird emojis that you don't know about, educate yourself. Smart Social is a wonderful website that has some ways to decode what your kids are saying. They not only have a huge list of the different acronyms that are being used, but also some of the emojis. If you see your kids sending emojis of peaches and eggplants, they're not vegetarians. Okay, this is not them asking for a lasagna or for some kind of fruit salad. These have meanings within their world, and if parents don't recognize what those meanings are, you're going to miss half the conversation. And you could have kids saying things very explicitly that you need to know about as a parent, but if you can't read the emojis, if you can't read their hieroglyphics, then you miss out on that, and you do a disservice to your kids by not educating yourself.
There we go. And Smart Social, I just put that in the comment section. I think it shows up on both platforms with Facebook and both on YouTube. LinkedIn, it does not show up on comments up in here. Won't show up on LinkedIn. I'm not exactly sure why. But Smart Social is right there for you guys, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Through your course of investigation also, have you ever had to deal with an app or an agency where you needed to get files from and they just did not cooperate? So you can actually find out I'm not tech savvy, but maybe IP addresses or locations or radio towers on how to zero in on the suspect and go ahead and exactly find the suspect and make the arrest?
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a couple of the more popular apps that are based outside of the country. And a lot of times they will not respond to our legal processes. They don't respond to us to be able to do that assistance. TikTok being one of the big ones, and TikTok is where a lot of predators are finding their victims because that's where all the kids are. And unfortunately, being from out of the country, they were not as helpful. We did have a couple that were very prolific in the activities, and even though they were foreign, they were amazingly helpful. You would hope that organizations like Meta that runs Facebook would be helpful. Meta or Facebook, their policy was if you could not explain that it was a child exploitation case or that there was some exigent risk of harm to the victim, they would not honor your search warrant and provide responsive return until after they had given the target opportunity to go to court and have the search warrant argued or quashed. And so we found that a lot of times we were having problems with Facebook because they wanted to give the bad guys the heads up first. The other problem that we had with Facebook was we had undercover accounts that we were using to pull the predators off of their own platform. And because their policy says that they're not supposed to have a fake account, they were closing down our UC accounts and we were losing investigations. And we tried to explain it to them. And the response that we got was the decision was made by Zuckerberg himself, that the head of security had gone to Zuckerberg and said, this is what law enforcement's trying to do. And Zuckerberg said, I don't care. It's a violation of the rules.
Wow.
Now, I don't know whether that has changed since I left. And I certainly don't want to say that Facebook is horrible, but I will say that it's a good thing that Facebook is not used by kids as much. It's mostly people our age, because it was less friendly to us. But of course, Zuckerberg also owns Instagram, and Instagram was recently found to promote some of the child exploitation in the ways that their logarithms were pushing people towards certain pages and were providing additional assistance to some of those groups. And so I'm unfortunately not too surprised by that. But, at the end of the day, I could call out every single app, every single social media out there because it's on all of them. I've seen it on Roblox. I've seen it on back in the day when there was Club Penguin. They were on Club Penguin. You name it, unfortunately, it's out there.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that information. It's kind of disheartening. You kind of would hope that the protection of innocence would be the forefront of any corporation, company, or app. But I mean, sometimes that's just not always the case.
Well, they didn't have any way to monetize helping children, but there was certainly a lot of money to be made in turning the other way. And that was Backpage's downfall. And so my only hope is that as more and more information is coming out there into the public, as more and more people are starting to advocate and fight for children and for their safety, that we'll see another, Backpage kind of movement where we can start really holding the tech companies accountable for what they're doing or not doing to protect kids.
Gotcha. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stand by. We will be back with another Certain Be Safe cartoon, and then we will jump more into this interview. Stand by.
Hey, bro, we got next game.
Bro, what's going on?
We got this pickup game we're about to get started.
I got a bag full of treats.
Come on, man. Don't nobody want your treats. Treats? What kind of treats?
Vapes, pills, and drugs.
Whoa, what do you mean?
Don't tell your parents.
Looks like I'm right on time. What's going on here?
There's Sergeant Be Safe. I gotta get a picture.
Oh, man, be safe.
Treacherous Tony, we know you're up to no good. What's in that bag right there?
What bag?
Sergeant Be Safe, it's his drugs. He tried to sell it to us. Thanks, big guy, for letting me know. You're welcome. You kids get out of here. Treacherous Tony, drop the bag and come over here.
You'll have to catch me first.
Don't run, or you're gonna get tased. All right, taser, taser, taser.
All right. I give up. I won't do it again.
That's right, your drugs will be disposed of. So put your hands up. You're coming with us.
I'm sick of going to jail.
Listen up, kids. Don't use drugs, vapes, or pills. They're not good for you. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are here with Randy Snyder and his book. Again, let me put it here on the screen. Cyber Creeps. Right here. And his, let me make sure it's centered. His experience and information while he did investigations. So let me ask a question here that kind of flips the script. Are there any style of personality traits that you saw in suspects that is standard across the board? Or are these suspects, can they be very random and some very low key and some very obvious, or what kinds of things could quote unquote the everyday person look for?
I wish there was a trait that made it that easy. After enough years of looking at photos, we could kind of go, yeah, that's our guy. But really, unfortunately, it ran the gamut. I had guys that were, the stereotypical 30-year-old living in his mom's basement, all the way up to he was a major in the Army. He was a pilot in the Army. I had people that were, prison guards. I had people that were cops. I had people that were, I had one that was an elementary school principal for the elementary school not too far from my house. Wow. We had college kids. We had females. Really, it runs the gamut. We know that in the world of child sexual abuse, the majority of kids are abused by somebody that they know. It's either a family member or somebody that's known to the family. That changes a little bit with the online, but unfortunately, the demographics of it are still just as open. And I wish there was a way that we could, point them out and say, yeah, if you look like this is the bad guy. But it unfortunately didn't work that way.
Yeah. A comment here by Dr. Francine. Yes, religious leaders, coaches, and teachers. Absolutely.
Yep. I had one that was actually conducting his exploitation and searches from the parish computers at the church where he was a youth minister, and was using their IP to try and hide what he was doing. So,
and like I said, I'm not one that has done a lot. I have assisted in some sex crime investigations, and yes, I have seen one or all of those mentioned job fields or volunteer fields of individuals who were suspects in those cases as well. Like some of the suspects that were in your book, I know one story that's highlighted, and I don't want to give too much away, so the guest here can obtain a copy of the book, was the diaper individual and the shed in the heat that you're talking about now. I don't understand how that was able to be done with a smell that would just be so overwhelming. Or the couple, I believe it was an African-American male and a Caucasian woman.
Ken and Barbie.
I'm sorry?
Ken and Barbie.
Yeah. Some of those, the stories are outrageous. And then the way, I think there were a few of them where you mentioned, like, after they got caught, their excuse was, I'm only doing this because I want to help the police out. How many times have you heard that excuse?
Probably about as many times as your average patrol guy hears, "These aren't my pants," when you find the dope in the pocket. Or yeah, it was almost always an excuse like that. I was conducting this investigation. I was going to turn it all over to the cops, and I just forgot, or I didn't get around to it. I had one guy that he said he was online and he was searching for something, and he came across a particular term that was associated with the exploitive materials. And he decided that he wanted to find out who that person was that created that term. So he started downloading all of their stuff in the hopes that he could analyze it to be able to. And I'm like, dude, A, that dude's already in prison. We know who that is. His stuff is just still out there. And B, you're not a cop. You don't get to download a bunch of child exploitive materials and try and say that you're doing an investigation for us. It doesn't work that way. That's like saying that a drunk driver is trying to help you out with catching DUIs. It just doesn't work.
Good analogy. Yeah. Yeah. So it took you to get caught for you to actually come forward with this evidence, right?
Right.
And so you also mentioned about what was it, Australia? There was someone who posted something that has been cataloged over and over and over again to the point where I think that information, or correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it's the right term. Those images are still out there and hard to terminate.
And that's the biggest problem with the internet and with child exploitation is once it's out there, there's no way to stop it. NCMEC has recently started a program where they're able to go and contact some of the social media sites, some of the web users, and try and scrub some of the information. But the problem is it's out there, and so many people have it on hard drives. They have it on thumb drives.
Right.
They're sharing it through social media. They're sharing it through dark web sources. They're sharing it through, Dropbox accounts and things like that. Once it's out there, there's no way to ever retrieve it. And that's where we're finding a lot of the kids that are getting involved in the teen sexting are having so many problems because they'll send that picture out to Mr. or Miss Right Now. And of course, typical high school relationship lasts 2 weeks. And next thing you know, that image has gone out. I had one student here in Arizona that was in the Queen Creek area.
Mm-hmm.
Just to put it into perspective, Queen Creek is or was at the time a very small, primarily farming community. It was just starting to grow up as kind of a bedroom community, and it's about 40 minutes as the crow flies into kind of the valley area, the Phoenix metro area. And so this little girl sent a picture to her boyfriend. And of course, 2 weeks later, they're broken up. His new girlfriend goes through his phone, finds it, decides to do the mean girl thing and send it out to everybody.
Yeah.
It went through every high school in the Queen Creek area, which was about 5 different high schools at the time.
Wow.
It started moving toward the valley, and I stopped tracing it in Tempe, which is down near Arizona State University, about 40 miles or so away. Wow. And it had been going through high school by high school throughout that whole thing. And this girl, she didn't want that. She didn't anticipate that.
Right.
And so I tell kids when I do talks at schools and things like that, if it's not a picture that you would be proud to show your parent, if it's not a picture you would be proud to show your grandma or your principal or your pastor, if it's not a photo that you would want broadcast on the Jumbotron at the Super Bowl, don't even take it, because the number of people that see that picture on the Jumbotron at the Super Bowl is about how many can view it daily once it's online. And there's just no way to ever scrub it. And so the risk of those images getting out, unfortunately, is really bad. And I had suspects. I had a suspect that was here in Arizona that contacted some girls through Snapchat in Australia and ended up obtaining their images. And the Australian authorities were able to catch it fairly quickly. And they contacted us, and we went and hit his phone. But once we got his device, we found out that he also had victims in New York, Ohio, Arizona, California, Kansas, England, and there's probably a couple others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head.
Wow.
That he had reached out and he had done the same thing. He had victims as young as 9.
Wow.
And so the borders for these individuals are gone. They can have a global reach. They can reach kids anywhere and everywhere. They reach into your homes and into your kids' bedrooms and bathrooms and things like that. And you can put all the locks on the door that you want. If you don't have those locks on your cell phones and on the kids' cell phones, you might as well just open the doors and leave them wide open.
Yeah, that's kind of like a segue right here to this next question we have on the table from Guy and Grace. He's got a two-part question. Hey, Randy, my daughter has been spending a lot of time online lately. I tried to do regular checks, and it seems that she's been talking to a guy regularly who lives in Ohio. What do you recommend?
I recommend. Oh, sorry.
The second part, she's a bit sassy, and I don't think she's going to send any nudes or anything, but I'm worried that this guy is an adult.
So I would immediately contact your local law enforcement. Because some agencies are much smaller and not every officer is as educated in this as they could be or should be. If you don't get anything from your local law enforcement, then contact your local Internet Crimes Against Children task force. There are 61 of them across the country. And so every state has at least one. If your local law enforcement isn't available or doesn't know how to handle it, contact ICAC. They'll have an affiliate in the area that can help you out. Even if it's another kid in Ohio, you never know what they're talking about. You never know what they're getting into. And your daughter may be perfectly innocent in sending anything out. But I would always err on the side of caution to say, if this is another kid, we need to know who it is and make sure that the intentions are not there. This is also a really good segue to having that conversation with your daughter, talking about, hey, has anybody ever asked you this? We know that more and more kids are seeing hardcore pornography online. Yeah. Kids as young, the average age of coming across hardcore pornography is about 11, and they can come across it on Twitter, they can come across it on Instagram, they can come across it on any of these social media apps. And a lot of times these groomers are using that as a way to desensitize kids and groom them into the behavior. So even if she's not sending anything, has she received anything? We know about 75 to 80% of kids have received unsolicited and unwanted nudes from other people, even their own peers. And so that kind of behavior helps to desensitize, it helps to normalize, and it can be just as harmful for them to be receiving that sort of thing as it can be for them to send it. Right. And so open those lines of communication with your daughter, find out, has she received it, find out what information she knows about this guy, let law enforcement take a look at it and see. Don't delete anything. They're going to want her device. They're going to want the whole device so that they can conduct a forensic examination and receive that background metadata that will help them decide whether this is a kid and it's a non-issue and just an educational opportunity, or whether this is a criminal, because if it is, odds are she's not the only person that he's talking to. The average groomer, the average exploiter has somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 victims before they get caught.
Wow, that's a large number. And Guy, I hope that answers your question.
And if it doesn't, on my website there, that's on the scroll on the bottom, there is a contact. You can reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you reach out to your local jurisdiction and make sure that you get the right help. There's also a bunch of internet resources. There's links to different web pages. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has some really great information about how to start having those conversations. I have borrowed some things from an agency out of the UK that makes some really great visual flyers that I have on my webpage that I put out there so that the information gets out. And there's a lot of really good resources and links to resources so that you can make sure that your kids are being protected as much as possible, and you can have those conversations hopefully before the bad guys do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you this. This kind of raises another question for me. How popular is sexting amongst our youth, our juveniles, or what are they, tweens and teens? Yeah. And how is that handled and tolerated as well from your experience?
So in Arizona, we have two different statutes that fit under that. For teen to teen, just kid to kid, single, transmission. Typically, if we're going to do anything more than an educational contact, we're going to go under, what's called our Title VIII. That's our child welfare offenses, and basically it's a petty offense. It's a hey, knock it off, because the other alternative under our criminal statutes is any image of a child under the age of 15 is considered what's called a dangerous crime against children. And if it's an exploitive image, it is a presumptive 17 years per image.
Wow.
So if you get caught with 10 images, you're looking at 170 years.
Wow.
And that's the presumptive. It can vary a little bit, but the minimum is 10 years per. We don't particularly want to put kids, 15, 16, 17-year-olds in prison for 10, 15, 17 years because they got a nude picture of their girlfriend or their boyfriend. But at the same time, we want to use it as an educational process, because about a third of all children have been solicited for an image. Somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40, I think the last number I saw was about 45% have sent a nude or semi-nude image at some point. And what we're finding more and more is that because pornography online is so easy to come by, what we're finding is that the numbers for teens believing that sexting is a normal part of a relationship, it's an expected part of a relationship, and more disturbingly, violent sex and violence in sex is normalized and kind of expected, that we're finding more and more kids are kind of moving into those directions, and the numbers of kids that are engaging in those behaviors is increasing every year.
Wow. And I appreciate you sharing. That was going to be one of my questions. I actually was going to ask earlier was anytime a predator or a suspect is found with an image, you said that's traditionally about 10 years per image. And if the suspect has already violated more than 100 juveniles per se, I mean, they've got multiple images that normally put them away for years and years, basically multiple life sentences.
Right. I have, so in Arizona, because of the hard sentencing laws, because it's a mandatory minimum of 10 years per image, we typically only charge about 10 images. Anything beyond that is gratuitous. Now, the guy that I went to his house and I found 700,000 images on his device. Did I want to be there and listen to the judge give him what is that, 70 million years in prison? Yeah, absolutely. I was happy with the sentence that he got. But federally, it's a much lower standard. So our federal partners here in Arizona tend to charge stateside because they get better sentences. But I know in other states like California, the last time I talked to some guys out in California, most of their district attorneys, because it was so prolific out there, if they didn't have at least 1,000 images, they wouldn't even bother to charge them. And most of them at 1,000 images were getting misdemeanor charges. They didn't start getting heavy felonies until there was hands-on offending or there was a live victim, something like that. If they're just trading, the prosecutors are so overwhelmed with the quantity of them that they're getting nothing. I had a guy out of California. He had already been convicted stateside and was registered as a sex offender. He had already been convicted federally and was a registered sex offender. I was his third offense. And during the course of the investigation, we found not only was he attempting to offend against my undercover persona, but he had a live victim out in California. Wow. And I think he got 5 years in prison in California. So every jurisdiction's different. Some of them are a lot more harsh than others. And the best thing I can say is, if your state doesn't have harsh sentencing on that, contact your local legislator and tell them you want a little bit of, teeth to the laws, because there's no way to protect our kids otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. So Randy, let me ask you another two-part question here. Have you seen an offender get arrested and become rehabilitated where they no longer offend again? Or have you seen a victim have been victimized, and as they become an adult, they turn into an offender themselves?
I've had offenders that claim to have been prior victims. I couldn't corroborate that. I couldn't find a court case or a report or anything to substantiate that. We do know that there is some validity to the victim to offender typologies, but it's a lot more rare than you would think. Most of the studies that I've seen and read indicate that it's really not that prevalent. Most people that are victimized, except under certain circumstances where they're victimized at a very young age and for a long period of time, are not particularly likely to be to become offenders. If they're victimized at a very young age and it's done over a very long period of time, the activities become so normalized at that point that there is kind of a shift in their thinking, and those sometimes become offenders. Matter of fact, my newest book, Bloodline, is about a family that for 4 generations, the males in the family were victimizing. And they were not only being victimized, but then they would carry it on to the next generation and offend. And it was such a bizarre case that I felt like it just needed to be put out there. But as far as the first part of your question, you asked about the offenders being rehabilitated. You know, I'm not going to say that it can't happen, because the overwhelming majority of offenders are not true pedophiles. If you look at the clinical definition, if you look at what is necessary to classify somebody as a pedophile under the DSM-5, most of them don't fit into that. Most of them are more situational offenders. They're more they're perverts, but they're not pedophiles. And so the ability for them to be rehabilitated, if given the right treatments, clinically has been shown. I've seen some studies that say that it's there. Personally, what I can say is all the people that I've put away in my career are still in prison, so they really haven't gotten that opportunity to show that they've been rehabilitated. But I've caught enough repeat offenders that I question how well it works, especially given that most of the justice systems in the United States are not therapeutic in nature and do not provide the therapies that would be necessary to do that. We're more punitive in nature.
Gotcha. Thank you for answering that question. I know I've got one question. An individual who I work with, they're looking to get into the field of investigations. If someone was already in law enforcement, or they're in the military, or they're in college, or even getting ready or have graduated, because we're in the middle of the summer now, from high school, and they're looking to get into law enforcement, especially investigation and maybe sex crime investigation, what kind of advice would you give them?
The best thing that I can say first and foremost is law enforcement's a great career, and even though we've been villainized in the media in the last couple of years, there's still a need for people to go out there and protect the public. We still need sheepdogs. We still need the people to protect the people against the criminals that are out there. If you want to get into the career, it has some really great benefits. There are some educational opportunities that you can take in colleges, taking criminal justice classes, stuff like that. But I would say a lot of it is hands-on. For us in Arizona, at least, you can become a detention officer at 18. You can become a sworn officer at 21. I highly recommend getting into detention, learning how to deal with people, learning the safety, learning the pat downs, learning the searching techniques, all of those things. You will learn how to deal with the criminal element a lot better if you are in that kind of an environment. and you will you'll grow up real fast to be able to do it. It also, once you're in an agency, gives you the opportunity to do things like going out and volunteering with the canines and taking bites, so you can get some of that exposure and experience. You can start doing ride-alongs. Go see what it is. A lot of people, and I'm guilty of it myself, man, I went up and I thought, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to run fast and chase people and do all of those things. And I don't know if you felt the same way, but
I have.
When I was young, I thought Reno 911 was funny and Cops was real life. And after about 5 years, I went, nope, it's the other. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Reno 911 is so much more appropriate once you've been in for a while. But if you're one of those people that you watch Cops and you watch Live PD and you watch all of those things and you think, man, that's what I want to do, understand that for every 30-second segment, you got 6 hours of paperwork. So get your writing skills down, get your reading skills down, get your observational skills down, because you're going to be writing reports about everything. Reports for reports that you've written. You'll write reports for not writing a report. You'll write a report for absolutely everything. Those are the skills that you really need to focus on. And then physical fitness. Unfortunately, we just know that America today, we like our donuts a little bit too much. And so I'm not saying that we don't partake in vitamin D on the job on a regular time, but you got to keep the physical fitness. There's no excuse. You got to be able to run after the bad guy. You got to be able to hop those fences and things. If you're practicing your officer safety and stuff like that in the jail, you're getting your academics down and you're getting your physical fitness down, then you can go in and you can do anything. And then the last thing that I would say on that topic is mental wellness. You've got to keep your mind straight. You've got to know what your breaking points are. You got to know how to handle it properly. You got to know what resources are out there to be able to deal with it, because nobody gets out of this career unscathed. We've all got our calls. We've all got our cases. We've all got our situations that weigh heavy. And if you don't have the right processes to take care of that, if you're not doing the things that you need to do to make sure mentally you're there, it'll break you. And I hate to see I think it's 3 times the number of officers every year kill themselves as are feloniously killed. And it's as bad as the 22 a day for veterans. We don't treat our veterans well with PTS. We don't treat our officers, or we haven't historically. We're starting to get better, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done on mental wellness for officers and for all first responders, really.
Absolutely. You hit a lot of good points right there. Thank you for sharing all of that. I appreciate it. Yeah. Stand by. We're going to, before we wrap up, we got Sergeant Be Safe coming to the stage here with another commercial, and we will be right back. Stand by.
What up, Jackson? Let's get these bikes and join up with the crew.
All right, I want to try some stunts.
Cool. I got the camera. I'll record you as you sig and sag through traffic.
Okay, I'm ready to go whenever you are.
Hey fellas, I hope you don't plan on riding those dirt bikes on the street. That's illegal activity. You guys don't have the proper gear to ride. The bikes also need inspected, insurance, and registration.
Oh, I didn't know we needed all that.
You guys don't have a driver's license either. Sorry, fellas.
Everyone else does it.
Bad decision.
So, is there a place where we can go ride them legally?
That's a great question. Yes, there are. In some states, there's designated areas like tracks or dirt roads where you can ride them. Riding them on the public road is not acceptable, especially when there is careless disregard for other people and traffic and property. You can get hurt or you can injure someone else just for being a thrill seeker. Not only that, it's illegal and you could face a ton of fines.
Thanks for letting us know. We weren't trying to get in any trouble.
I'm just glad we were able to help before things got bad.
That's a great question. Yes, there are. In some states, there's designated areas like tracks or dirt roads where you can ride them. Riding them on the public road is not acceptable, especially when there is careless disregard for other people and traffic and property. You can get hurt or you can injure someone else just for being a thrill seeker. Not only that, it's illegal and you could face a ton of fines.
I'm just glad we were able to help before things got bad.
Remember, fellas, this summer's going to be hot, so let's make it an enjoyable one. And let's not get in any trouble thrill-seeking while riding these dirt bikes and quad runners. Captain Chaos and I are here to help, and that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
All right, and we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Randy, I appreciate you coming on the show. You gave a lot of good information. It was very fun to talk to you. It was very exciting to hear these stories and to learn from you. And I hope your book does really well. And your next book, Bloodlines, The Evil's Legacy, when that comes out, we got to get you back on the show and discuss that one. But as of right now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you see the website going below. This is a website for cyber creeps. Also, I got my copy on Amazon, but he said he'll make sure you get an autographed copy if you go to his website and order it from there. Throughout the course of this conversation, I may have forgot to ask a question, or I may have jogged your memory, Randy. Is there anything that you would like to share with us that we haven't discussed? Right now, the floor is yours.
You know, the biggest thing, I appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity to get my voice out there to try and educate people on what's going on out there to keep kids safe. Biggest thing is just, people don't realize how prolific it is. More than 98% of the victims of child sexual exploitation are 13 and younger, at least as part of the live streaming stuff. Even with the non-live streaming, where the victims are getting younger and younger. And so parents, don't wait until your kids are a teenager or, getting into high school, stuff like that, to start having those hard conversations. Nobody likes the birds and the bees, but you got to worry about those electronic hornets too, because they're the ones that are really going out there. And Coach, I just appreciate you having me on, and hope you stay safe out there, and happy to be there if anybody needs any additional help with keeping kids safe.
Yes, absolutely. It was a pleasure to host you. I appreciate it. They're definitely going to get this information out there. Dr. Francine put a great show with lots of good information. Thank you, Randy. Absolutely. I enjoy retirement, even though you're still working again, like we discussed backstage. I appreciate you coming on the platform and blessing the show. I could go on for days with these questions, and I can tell that you're excited about it and you have a passion for this too, and keeping kids safe and getting that information out there, because this is not a topic that's easy to discuss, and it's not one that parents often have questions about, even though I believe they have a ton of questions. They just either don't know how to ask the questions or do not want to know the answers as well.
And that's the problem, is some of them don't want to know the answers because it is an uncomfortable topic, but it's not something that you can put your head in the sand about. And if any of your guests or viewers, need additional information, and I'm happy to come back anytime and have another chat, or if they want to reach out to me through my webpage, I'm happy to answer questions there. But I had a great time, and look forward to coming back.
Thank you. Absolutely. We will definitely have you here again. This is Black and Blue. This is the show. We air weekly, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we interview law enforcement officers and first responders with their trainings, their experiences, and their publications. So if you're looking for information on law enforcement and first responders, this is your place. If you're looking to get into the field itself, this is your place. If you're looking just to have a good spot-on conversation and learn more information, this is your platform. So make sure you guys tune in. This is your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, and your author, Coach Clee, saying 10-4, over and out. Thank you. Then stand by.
Here's my chance. No cameras, no security systems, nothing. I'm about to own this house.
Rob you blind. We know you're in there.
Oh no! It's Be Safe!
The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands up.
I'm not coming out!
Okay, I'm sending in Kraken.
Release the Kraken!
Dance with my dogs in the nighttime.
Ah! Kraken bit me!
I tried to warn you.
We'll get you the proper medical attention, but you're gonna have to surrender and come out with your hands up in that house that does not belong to you.
Hold on. I'm coming out.
Don't be all day. We'll send Kraken back in.
My leg hurts now. And I have to go back to jail.
Well, this is what happens when you illegally enter a property that does not belong to you, also known as burglary.
Ooh.
And there you have it. Rob you blind, you're coming with me. Hopefully you learn to respect other people's property and not break into homes. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.